Bryon Powell of iRunFar here with Mike Wolfe, second place at the 2010 UTMB. Congratulations.
Thanks.
How does it feel?
It feels good, all in all, considering how the weekend played out. You know, I mean, I'm happy with my finish and happy with kind of how we were able to salvage the weekend with the restart on Saturday. But yeah, I mean, I still have the kind of unsettled feeling in my stomach, like there's unfinished business or it wasn't the real thing. But all things considered,
so
what can you do?
Unfinished business. I mean, regardless of how you did this year, you think you'll.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to come back and run the whole course, race.
Because you've never done the whole course.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, honestly, I mean, it feels different to me too, being that not all the top competitors were in the race Saturday. You know, it wasn't the full course, and some of the top guys, you know, didn't start Saturday, so it was a little bit different, you know, in that regard. But
so there's a little asterisk next to the race.
Yeah, certainly an asterisk next to this race.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, from the race organizer's standpoint, it's really, I mean, I think all in all they likely made the right decision from all the information that I've seen and heard, and considering the turnaround time they had to rally and start some new race for 2,000 plus people and bus everyone over to Italy. I mean, it was pretty impressive that they pulled that off within a matter of hours overnight. Yeah.
How did your Friday night go? The first version of UTMB.
Friday night, the original, it started off really well. It was cool and rainy, but it was really kind of perfect running weather, and I started well and felt comfortable with the pace, and I was feeling good, you know, coming through Lake Contamine.
Yeah, you were tied for fourth there. You had, how much time had you spent running with Jeff Rose at that point?
Jeff and I had run for a better part of the, you know, up to that point, better part of the course. We'd run together, and you know, we were just kind of enjoying the pace and chatting it up and cruising along, and then that's kind of when. So
you got to Lake Contamine. What happened at the aid station there?
Yeah, so we get to Lake Contamine, which is 30K-ish, somewhere in there.
30K, 20 miles, yeah.
We come into the aid station together, and we knew at that point that Killian was only a couple of minutes ahead of us, something like that. And there's 2 or 3 race officials as soon as we come into the aid station that in broken English, because neither of us spoke French, had their arms blocking us saying, you must stop, and we're, you know, what are you talking about? We must stop. And then they said the race is canceled, and you know, there's so much energy at these aid stations. I mean, you can barely hear what they're saying anyway because the crowd's like this dull roar. And it was definitely this moment of like disbelief, like what are these guys talking about? So we both went to our crews to get aid real quick and get out of there, and I started yelling at my crew like, hey, what's going on? These guys are telling us the race is canceled. And they're like, no, keep going, we haven't heard anything. So Jeff and I both just got out of the aid station. No one stopped us. So at that point we just kept running, and we were both like, what is going on? Is that a bunch of BS, or is this race really canceled, or what? So anyway, we ended up getting, I don't know, a couple miles up the trail, and that's when we hit Killian and a couple other guys, and there was race officials that must have driven up there to stop us, and at that point, you know, then they told us that the race was really canceled.
So you come back to Chamonix. What do you do here, and then
come back to Chamonix, and you know, it definitely was like still kind of utter chaos. Like no one knew what to think. No one knew really why they had canceled the race. There was rumors of some massive mudslide that had taken out a part of the course, and that the weather was really bad, and then there was already rumors of like, well, are they going to restart the race on Saturday morning or maybe Sunday morning? No one really knew what was going on. But the last I heard, which was, I don't know, 1 in the morning or something, that it was over, like done. That was it. but a lot of us still had, pent up energy and like this, to be going into a 100-mile race of this, stature, and then have it 3 hours in, just have the plug pulled was definitely crazy. So I know a lot of people like went to the bar. I ended up going for a hike.
How long of a hike did you go for?
Like a 3-hour hike up La Bravante till like 4 in the morning. Didn't eat anything. Came back and just kind of crashed out. And then, a few hours later, got a phone call in the hotel room, and they're like, you have a half hour to be down in the lobby. They're restarting the race. And at that point, I mean, myself and I know Jez too, I mean, we almost didn't go. I mean, at that point, I was like, well, do we, is it worth it? So anyway, I rallied, a lot of people rallied. Some folks decided not to, and I had had a piece of bread with Nutella on it on the bus ride over to Courmayeur, and showed up at the start. And
how did your race go?
It went, I mean, all in all, it went great. It was a fun day. I started out Saturday morning with absolutely no expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I think from lack of sleep and not eating anything the night before, my legs just felt like lead from the start. And I think a lot of us just kind of figured at that point we might as well just make the most of the day and enjoy running on the course. And
mm-hmm.
I mean, I had no expectations of it being like some serious race from the start, but then the events just unfolded and kind of turned into a race later in the day.
Yeah, when did it really turn into a race?
Yeah.
Like who'd you pass, or
what
sort of clicked for you?
I just kind of cruised at my own pace for the first few hours, from Courmayeur to Arnuva, and then up over the Col and down into La Fouille. And at that point, I just, based off the pace I was running, I was somewhere, I don't know, in the top 10. And then out of La Fouille, Jez caught up behind me, and we just started running together and just picked our pace up and started working together, and then we just started picking people off.
Mm-hmm.
And before we knew it, we were in second and fourth or something like that, third and fourth place. And that's when it turned into a race. Like, then we realized, like, oh, okay, well, we're halfway through this day and we're right up front. So, I mean, we didn't really talk about it, but at that point it was like, all right, we both knew we were just going to race it out and have fun. And that's when it actually got fun. I mean, the first half, it was really hard to get the body restarted, and mentally it was like this total juggling act of like trying to get back into the game, after everything that went down Friday night, and then not getting any sleep, and just kind of like jumping up Saturday morning. I mean, it's a crazy way to like start a race,
Yeah.
But anyway, once we got rolling and we started racing, it was fun. Like, I mean, just the scene over here and the fans and the spectators. Like, once we got going, it was like, all right, this feels real now. So
Mm-hmm.
that was super fun.
So when did you pass Dawa Sherpa, who was in fourth? That happened probably near Triana.
Yeah, so he was leading for a lot of the first half. I think he was maybe even 10 or 15 minutes up on us,
Mm-hmm.
and then he kind of had a rough patch. Jez and I both passed him on a downhill, and at that point, I think Jez took over the lead, and then I was in third, and then I believe it was on the climb out of Champay up and over Bovine where Jez and I kind of broke things up, and he pushed ahead a little, and then I bumped up into second place.
You passed Julian,
Yeah, and then that's when Jez and I started racing. He was just up on me like a minute or so.
So what's that like? You did work together for a very long time.
Yeah, we worked together, and we were teammates, and this is actually the first time we've raced against each other, but Jez is a great guy, and I think we had fun working together, like picking those guys off and
Mm-hmm.
and moving up front, and then I think it was good for both of us to be able to race each other a little bit and push. And I was, obviously I was hopeful that I was going to catch him, but towards the end of the race, that last climb up La Flégère, I just didn't have the oomph in me to catch him. So yeah.
But in the end, you finished second. How does that?
Yeah.
Great race.
Yeah, it feels good. I mean, like I said earlier, it's still the feeling of like it's not the real deal,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something different, but considering how everything unfolded, I'm just glad that, you know, we did what we could out there, given everything that happened.
Prior to, say, last year, you had, you'd run some great races. You'd set course records at Grand Teton, Tahoe Rim, the PCT 50 mile, and you'd been the USATF 50 mile champ at White River a couple years ago. But you were relatively unknown in the U.S. You sort of stepped it up this year. At American River, you were, was it fourth in 6:03, and then you won Bighorn in a record time. Did Jeff have the record before that?
No, Carl did.
Carl, that's right.
Yeah.
So you were relatively unknown in the States because you didn't really hit a ton of the
bigger
the marquee of aces,
yeah.
and then I'm sure no one knew you over here, or at least outside of the Americans.
No.
So what was that like coming to? You think that was an advantage of sorts?
Yeah, it definitely is, and it's. I think it is an advantage because you don't come in with like a target on your back or pressure on your shoulders. You know, you're not over here. I mean, it's such a huge deal. There's tons of press, there's tons of media before the race, and if people know who you are, you're gonna get hammered. You know, over here.
Did you have a single?
No, I mean, it's great. Come over here, no one knew who I was, and I mean, even like Jeff Rose, you know, I mean, he was able to get out of the limelight a little, even though everyone knows who he is. Like, no one really recognizes him on the street, kind of thing. Which I think he was psyched on that. But yeah, I mean, no one knew who I was. It's kind of fun that way too. Even when you're racing, I mean, once we got up front, like all the guys that we were racing against were looking at Jez and myself and kind of like, who are these guys? And this fella Keith, one of the North Face guys over here in Europe, he was getting phone calls from the race director, Catherine, during the race, especially late in the race. She was calling him saying, who are these guys up front? Who are these guys? We don't know what to say about them, you know, because they're trying to broadcast and talk at the finish line, and no one knew who we were. So it's kind of exciting. I mean, it's kind of cool that things changed up from the norm this year in that regard, I guess.
Yeah. Well, next time you come over here to Chamonix, you will not be unknown, and best of luck then, and thanks for taking the time to talk.
Yeah.